Hey Purpose Peeps, this is Dena Wiggins of DenaWiggins.com with a real talk conversation about what's going on from a purpose perspective. So first and foremost, what's going on is unprecedented change. Regardless of the different ways that we're responding to the change or the different ways that we perceive the change, I think everyone can agree that we are all impacted or touched through the COVID-19 crisis. And I just want to extend my heart and prayers to us all, and just want to honor the families and communities that have lost lives, have lost loved ones, have lost community members, and just want to acknowledge that we are all impacted in various degrees, both personally and just as compassionate human beings that share compassion and empathy toward our frontline workers, our essential workers, and just everyone that is experiencing the deep pivots that we're all making to adapt to the time that we're in. And, so everybody is experiencing change at the same time, just to varying degrees. And this is a big deal, right? What is different for us is how we perceive the change, right? And what our personal and collective responses are to the change. But what we are realizing more and more is that normal has moved before her lease was up. So normal went out, departed before we knew that that was going to happen. It happened rather quickly for most of us. And so not only is it unprecedented change, but this is unplanned change, unanticipated change that we're all having to adapt to. So with this type of change, there's not a playbook for it because it's such a massive plate of change, right? It's not like one specific type of change. It's change on top of change on top of change. And with this level of disruption, many of us are experiencing the combination, this very strange combination that's kind of like a change gumbo. And in the change gumbo, you may have some fear, some panic, some loss of identity, especially if you have been furloughed or laid off or lost your job or had to shutter down your business or are home pretty much 24/7 when you are accustomed to a really completely different type of schedule, a lack of clarity about who you are, just who you are as a person, and then, what is your connection and relationship with others when, the ways that we normally collect and the ways that we normally work together and socialize has all been disrupted. Also, the shift from maybe a thriving mindset and activities to more of a survival mindset and activities. Um, this type of disruptive change may also cause you to have just a new way of seeing and relating to things and open you up in terms of perspectives. Other people can see more of the silver lining through the change, and also are really expanding in terms of kindness and compassion. And then some may have increased clarity in the middle of all of this and have more assuredness of who they are and what their call to action is, right? So those would be the ones that are the guides during this time, right? Some may feel more sparks of innovation and creativity. So it's just this big gumbo of all of the different responses to this huge, huge, huge amount of change. So if you took a look inside of this change gumbo that we're all in, you would find that the one common thing, right, is that we are all responding to this huge COVID 19 pandemic, right? That's the common denominator. But it all hit us while we were in different phases of life with different life experiences. And so that means that the hosting environment, when this thing hit, is different depending upon where you are in the world, depending upon what was going on where you are in the world prior to this thing happening. And just like with any crisis, what is already there is like magnified, it's amplified, right? And so if you are in an area of the world that is community minded and can pull together, then this event would bring more of that to bear. If you are in a part of the world or in a community that's divisive and has different types of competing agendas and not being able to kind of find a common thread to come together, then that may be amplified during this crisis type of event. And so what is also different within this change gumbo are the different perspectives about it, right? Just how do you perceive what's happening, right? And what's really different down to the individual level is that this event has different assignments for different purpose peeps. So yeah, there's purpose is alive and well, even during this massive disruptive amount of change. And we all have different assignments. It's working different things through us individually as purpose peeps and also as a collective. So I want to throw a couple of life jackets out there, a couple of floaters out there, just so you can kind of like hang on to these couple of things while we kind of navigate some of this change together. So the first thing I want to share with you is that you are still here for a reason beyond survival, right? So no matter where we were, no matter what you were doing or how you were functioning before this event happened, we're all like being reset. We all have a reset opportunity here. And with that reset opportunity here, I just want you to, no matter what you're doing right now, to sustain yourself and to sustain your household and your communities and your teams, your groups of impact, just all the different relationships that you have in life right now. I just want to say you're amazing and that your thriving life of purpose is still available for you, and it's going to actually what you're experiencing right now is going to be the catalyst to that. And I know that it may not feel that way right now, but I just want you to explore that as a possibility if that just seems kind of out of reach right now. And if you resonate with it, we're just going to do an air high five while we're practicing social distancing, and we're just going to say yes, okay? I also want you to consider that chaotic times birth huge transitions and innovation. So these really challenging times actually birth, really amazing purpose possibilities. It may not feel that way right now. It may feel like what the heck else is can go on, okay? Like we're all like in the middle of this huge earthquake, and we think that the tremor is over, right? And we can stop trying to hold on to things and keep everything in place. Um, and then next thing you know, there's another disruption, and then the very thing that we were trying to hold on to and trying to protect from the change is now on the floor with everything else, right? Sound like, your life? Because I know it sounds like mine. All right. If it's not, if I feel like I had gotten to a place where I felt kind of settled that it was something else that was happening, that was going to be like, you know what, I don't have another arm, leg, or anything to kind of hold this together, and I'm just going to have to let it be what it's going to be. And, for everyone that's had to have those type of realizations and let go, I just salute you, but it was not for nothing. Okay, because this is actually the birthing ground that's going to really allow you to propel into this version of yourself that you and I may not have even thought was, a functioning of ourselves, right? But it's coming through all of this chaos and uncertainty that's going to actually reveal those aspects of ourselves and others. So another thing that happens, that I'd like for you to consider is that all the BS and the masks kind of fall to the wayside when we're rocked to our core. So think about the pre-COVID and how we wouldn't even take a picture without applying a filter. We wouldn't do a live. We wouldn't be seen at the mailbox without having ourselves together. And now everybody, from no matter what your socioeconomic status is, was, kind of just revealing that, hey, I'm just like you. I, haven't had a good shave or a good haircut. I've got my roots are looking crazy. I have no more nails, right? And so, I mean, like all, and those are just like the obvious masks, but we wear a lot of masks. We have a lot that we use as defense mechanisms and use to just kind of insulate ourselves so that we don't have to expose ourselves and be as vulnerable as we could be. But you know what? Times like these, when we're rocked to the core, all that stuff goes away. You don't have time for it. You do not have the capacity for it. Can you relate to that? And then also, what may happen during times like this is that your trauma, the things that we have experienced in our past that we thought that maybe we have worked through, we have unlocked, we have done all that, we have explored all that, that is in the past. I am living my best life right now. And then here we are, and we have something that pushes us from however we were functioning in life to survival mode that may feel akin to something that we've experienced in the past. So if you've ever been in the past and you experienced job insecurity, or you experienced layoff or furlough, or you experienced having to reinvent yourself in your career or in your business, or you experienced food insecurity or shelter insecurity and any of those things. So this time when everything was shut down or altered in some place can be really, really triggering. But I just want you to consider that whatever is revealed is ready to be healed. So if this another aspect of that that's coming up, then it's ready to be healed or it's ready to participate in the conversation. So a lot of times those different areas could have been, locked off. And so we could be, this functioning version of ourselves. But that's even a mask because that part of ourselves could be the exact thing that's needed to shift our purpose into a different gear. And so while all this disruption is happening, and then that part of you is coming out, but we only relate to that part of us as something that needs to be pushed aside, cut off, locked in the vault of the past. We have an opportunity to have a different experience with that. And lastly, I would say that the magic answer does not exist. It doesn't exist. So even while I'm providing this as like a framework and a tool to kind of give a perspective about what may be happening with you and what you may witness and observe in other people during this time, it is not an answer. We have to live through this thing, and we have to cultivate what is required, to be able to not only survive this, but also to be able to not kind of lose ourselves in the change, but let the change birth what it was intended to birth in us and through us at this time. Okay, so here's the elephant in the room. So why focus on purpose, right? Why are you focusing on purpose and we got all this other stuff going on, right? These immediate needs going on, right? These immediate concerns going on. We're trying to get our kids through this term. We're trying to recuperate from everything we did to get our kids and our families, through these last couple of months, right? Well, the reason why is because um, Our reason for being is a trusted anchor. And as we rebuild, as we come through this, and as we co-create this new normal together, we want to do that with a firm foundation. We don't want to do that with some fake fluff stuff that the minute some other type of aftershock happens around this massive amount of change that we're experiencing, that it just kind of crumbles. And so the best way to build a good foundation is to focus on what's true, to focus on what's real. And your reason for being is what's true and what's real. And it's why I can say with no question, right, that your purpose, my purpose, our purpose is more than just surviving, through this event, right? It's who we become as we figure things out through this time of such ambiguity and such uncertainty and such unknowing, right? And so as we find our way, we'll find the tools that are for us to rebuild. Make sense? So let's dive in. So a couple of slides ago, I've talked about how this event is really going to reveal our different assignments and our different responses. And so there are 4 different types of perspective that you might be experiencing during this time. And they have to do with the different types of shifts that are coming up for you. So there's an inner purpose clarity shift, and that has to do with all the different things that are being kind of realigned and happening on the inside of who you are as a Purpose Peep, right? And it has to do with, what's your heart-centered why, and or, what is it that you love or you would take a stand for, or what is your core brilliance that really speaks to the essence of who you are. You could also be experiencing shift without a purpose clarity. And everybody, I think, has experienced a shift with this. And because we had to go through the shuttering in, everybody's had some type of shift without a purpose clarity. And this isn't about what someone is saying or defining your purpose as being. This is how you extend what you understand about who you are as a Purpose Peep beyond yourself. That's why I call it outer purpose clarity. So it's how you are handing out who you are as a Purpose Peep to the world. And the world has different dimensions. They're all like outside of you. So your world could be your spouse, your world could be your home, your world could be your family, and is your family, your community, your peer groups, your social groups, your society, your business, your department. So all these different aspects of the world beyond you. So everybody's world beyond yourself has been shifted. Everyone. Okay? And then there's another camp which is like, hey, guess what? Everything's being tossed up. Everything's for grabs. I'm questioning who I am as a Purpose Peep. This time is really causing me to check in and say, hey, have I really been focusing on, what I love and what I'm passionate about? Do I even know what my core brilliance is? And so as we start to have, some of these shifts, and it's like, well, who am I? Right? If I'm not showing up, at work or in community and able to do these different things which allow me to have meaning and allow me to have, a sort of identity, who am I while I'm in the house behind these 4 walls with nothing to do but to be with myself and to hear my thoughts and to reflect and review on my life? What is it that I'm seeing? As well as your outer purpose clarity that everybody's experiencing in terms of, how you are related to the world outside of yourself. And then also another aspect of that is, how are you compensated? So that's your money, of course, your tangible compensation. But then there's also just that feeling of being connected, that feeling of adding value, that feeling of belonging, that wonderful oxytocin that our bodies produce when we are doing the thing that we love, when we feel like we are contributing to a whole. Those different physical and spiritual and soul aspects of living a life of purpose, right? All of that stuff has been, kind of shifted, right? And then there's another type of experience or response that will lead to a different type of assignment. And that's when, you're not really experiencing, a lot of change. I mean, of course, you can see the whole, you're in the change gumbo, but your response is not the same. It's like if anything, your inner and outer purpose clarity is enhanced. It's not a sense of loss, right? You kind of feel like you've been called to this time. You kind of feel like, you know, um, you have a different vantage point than a lot of other people have at this time. And so that's another type of assignment during this type of change. Which one is right and which one is wrong? They're all right, right? And they're all, and they're all for you, and they're all linked to like your job and your role and your assignment during this time of unprecedented change. So to unpack, kind of understanding, how this relates to purpose, let's just use the Ikigai model. And Ikigai is the Japanese word that loosely means reason for being, and it's ancient, and it really is a philosophy. And it was Anais Bach who brilliantly put this together in a Venn diagram to show how all these different aspects of purpose kind of talk to each other, and they all can represent this integrated reason for being that some purpose peeps around the world have adopted as a lifestyle and a way of being. And they have longevity of life, and they also have great health outcomes because of living purposefully. And so just a wonderful, wonderful model. And then she added to it and she embellished it by adding, it existed as three principles. One is do what you love. The other is do what you are, what reflects your essence, or what reflects your core brilliance. Be that, do that. And then, also, just to kind of be in alignment, and kind of have that balance with your relationship beyond yourself in terms of being connected to what is the ask of you. What is the ask of you? And so Anais Bach, she went ahead and she added a fourth circle, which represents like your compensation, like how you are putting out the essence of who you are out into the world. You are really being responsive to what is the ask of you and kind of really checking in with that. But then also, how are you compensated? So there's the tangible part of it, your money, and then there's the intangible, which are all the benefits that you receive from living your life of purpose. So brilliant. So when we're talking about what it is that you love to do, what is your heart-centered why, and the combination of your core brilliance, that's what I'm referring to when I say inner purpose clarity, right? And so if you think about like uh, that's what's happening on the inside of you. That's all about you, right? And that's kind of what I call the cocoon experience, right? When you are figuring out these things, for yourself, right? And the outer purpose clarity is when you are tapping into, well, how do I, now that I'm clear on um, just what my inner purpose is, what I'm passionate about, the combination of what you love and your core brilliance create your passion, right? And so now that I'm clear on that, how do I extend that out into the world? And so that contemplation, and then that also being in flow and having and being refreshed through whatever is your purposeful offering, that's your outer purpose clarity. Okay? And so these dynamics of purpose, they talk to each other, they pull, they help to birth one another. So they're not held in isolation. And so when you look at the very middle of the Venn diagram and you see that star represents your ikigai. That star represents your integrated reason for being. And then all the other blank combinations, these are all different experiences that you can experience on your path to purpose journey. So from the journey of knowing what these four things are individually to how they talk to each other and they come together. It's a journey to that. You can kind of have a picture of possibility of what that could be, but then we all journey to what that is. And we can have these different type of experiences of kind of playing with those four areas, playing with your inner and outer purpose clarity. So all these things could have been happening before COVID hit. Okay. They kind of, whether you are conscious to it or not, I can almost assure you that these things were all at play, whether whether you were aware and you had your awareness on them or not. They absolutely were at play. And so now that this major event, this major disruption has happened, it's shaking things up. And it's shaking things up, but it's working for you because this event and, just some of the most challenging times can birth some of the most beautiful experiences of clarity when you come through it, right? So if you've done any of my work in terms of the unlocking programs, like you understand this principle forwards and backwards and around and again. But this is just on another level, okay? So let's talk about what it looks like if you are having some inner purpose clarity shifts as a result of the time that we're in, the COVID-19 time that we're in, okay? So you may find yourself cocooning. You may find yourself kind of checking in and kind of having some quiet, contemplative time, right? And so if you are questioning what you love, that can look like something shifting in terms of what you would take a stand for. And so if you find yourself just like really focusing in on some aspect or dynamic of what is happening right now, and like you just can't leave it alone. You just like, no, this is not right. I cannot tolerate this. Something could be alive for you in terms of shifting your why. And also, if you find yourself kind of zoning in on like protecting something, zoning in on preserving something, zoning something is sacred to you. Something could be switching in terms of what you love. And the thing about the path to purpose journey is evolving, right? As you evolve over time and as your different things shift in terms of your outer purpose clarity. These things, they shift over time. And so, you know, without this change, they may happen at a different speed. They may happen at a different time frame, right? Where like you can have some more time to calibrate and to adjust with them. So what's different about this time is just the speed at which everything is happening, the requirement to pivot and change in order to kind of keep up and be present to that. Um, so that's really kind of like what's changed. It's like going through, instead of having a growth cycle that takes, or a change cycle that takes 2 to 5 years, like this stuff is happening like every week, right? Do you find that during this time about the rate of change and how stuff is like, it's like we're being knocked off of our comfort zone, our schedules, our plans, and it's just happening so fast. It's almost like you don't even have that much time to resist. You know what I mean? And so another area that could be shifting for you with this inner purpose clarity could be your core brilliance. And so I'm not talking about strengths. I'm not talking about strength finder. I'm talking about the thing that's behind the strength and the strength finder. So if you know that you're really proficient at doing something, it's an aspect of you that's behind that, that makes that such an impactful area for you and within the essence of who you are and how you show up in the world. So I call that your spark, right? And so your spark is the thing that kind of sits below how the spark will be used. So when we talk about jobs, titles, roles, things like that, that's how the spark can be used. That's the package that your spark is put into. And so these type of times, especially if you've had some shifts about roles, about responsibility, about title, about identity, and the package that you're accustomed to, right? When those things get shifted, it is uncomfortable, but it can also sometimes, but it can also help to reveal what is my spark. And when you're thinking about, again, how we're going to, that strong foundation, as we move into our new normal, whatever that is, and whatever, however you build, moving forward, whatever the requirements are, some people will be building from ground up. Some people will be, remodeling a room, or the change won't be so significant. So wherever you are within that scale of things, that scope of things, um, that inner purpose clarity, you can always build from inner purpose clarity. As long as you are an alive human being, right? You can tap into and rebuild from that. That's the essence of who you are. Okay. And so if you find yourself having a shift with that, and it's not quite as obvious, like which area or what's going on, but you're like, something's shifting inside of me. Okay. Um, just know that you can find that your inner motivation is shifting, like the things that usually motivate you and kind of jump start you are like, meh, I don't know. And so I'm not talking about depression. This is just something that's like, hey, that's not really alive for me anymore. And let me check into what that's about, right? And just like a general kind of lack of interest, that can kind of happen with that inner purpose clarity shift as well, right? It's almost like, you have this favorite dish that you love to eat. And then all of a sudden it's like, not feeling that anymore. Like your palate has changed, right? And so now you get to experiment and say, okay, what really lights my buttons now, right? Something has shifted. And so that's that inner purpose clarity shift. So now let's think about what some of the catalysts of inner purpose clarity shifts are. Now, I know we're talking about COVID specifically right now, right? But just to be able to take the learning and expand upon it, and just have this be something in your toolkit beyond this time, just know that the catalyst for inner purpose clarity shifts can be major life events. It could be anything, loss, grief, layoff, and it's not always a negative, or something that at least you perceive as negative when you first meet it, right? But it can also be sparks and nudges, just the different ways that we can kind of recognize the things that really connect with us at a soul level, right? It's like something that happens inside of us. It's a familiarity. It's something like a inner voice that's saying, hey, wait a minute, there's something here. Pay attention to this, right? These are the different types of sparks that you may experience. And then nudges have to do with the things that we're kind of nudged to do, um, that really are in keeping with the behavior of the spark, right? So it's like one thing to be sparked and something to get our attention, but then we're nudged to do the behaviors that allow us to stay in inquiry what that spark is until it kind of unfolds for us, right? And those can be really positive and rewarding experiences. And also another catalyst for inner purpose clarity shifts are trauma healing. So as we heal from the different types of traumatic experiences in our lives, we may find that our purpose clarity has shifted because we as we transition from just the different type of strategies that we had to deploy to be able to survive through some really challenging experiences. As our trauma heals, we're then available to reevaluate, hey, is this still real for me right now? Or was this just something that was like had a timestamp on it, right? And it's another purpose possibility available for me when I'm no longer nursing this wound, right? When I'm no longer kind of tied to um, the response to whatever that trauma was in my life. And so that's also a great time to reevaluate your inner purpose clarity. So outer purpose clarity shifts are really loud during this time. They're extremely loud during this time because outer purpose clarity shifts have to do with the extension of our hand outward and the extension of the hand or support back into us. So the extension of the hand outward has to do with, how you are extending who you are as a purpose peep into the world. So now that we've all experienced some degree of shuttering in around the world. We've also experienced basically the world just slowing down and just coming to a stop. We're also experiencing, this the different shifts as we all try to figure out, what opening up our um, states and our cities and counties, what that looks like and what makes sense for us. And so there's so much change in terms of how we're even able to connect, right, with each other and how we're able to connect with our purpose for service right now. So if you are considered an essential worker, then wow, your outer purpose clarity could have shifted a great deal because so much has shifted in terms of how we view what's essential right now, given the time that we're in. Those are huge changes, right? That we are all experiencing as purpose peeps, right? Of course, with that hand coming back to us and how we are being nourished and supported, that's changed significantly. I don't know whose money is not funny or has a fear or, has a concern rather around that. I mean, that's real. And also your purpose currency. Your intangible purpose currency is shifted as well because you have it, a lot of us that have had to turn on a dime and are dealing with, so much, are dealing with, you know, um, sick relatives. We might be dealing with, some health issues ourselves. We may be dealing with just so many different types of stressors, right? So our intangible purpose currency is shifted, right? Because now a lot of our reserves are toward, really making sure that we're good during a really stressful period. Okay. And when, um, we really can't predict our levels of stress right now. So a lot of time is really being spent in terms of, self-care, making sure that we're good, and all of that. And if you are not connected to like your normal schedule, your normal way of being, right? That kind of replenishes you at a soul level in terms of feeling connected with other purpose peeps, feeling like you are contributing, feeling like you're adding value. And so you're having to adjust. You may not, be able to connect that way right now. You may not, you may be laid off or furloughed. You may have had significant changes in your job. You may be a person that's trying to figure out, well, how do I pivot? What can I do, right now to be, helpful and supportive? And so all of these shifts in terms of our outer purpose clarity are major right now. They're major. These are things that are easily recognizable right now. So I'm not saying that in terms of the capacity for change and everything that's happening, that one supersedes the other or anything like that. What I am saying is that the outer purpose clarity is it's glaring, it's very obvious right now, right? And so what the symptoms of that, may feel like, if you are a person that really got some outer purpose clarity going, really going on right now, and you've been able to kind of shift and pivot, quickly to really be kind of like in the flow with what's essential right now, then you may have a desire to kind of speed up, like you're ready, you're raring to go, right? Conversely, if everything has kind of been tossed upside down, you may really feel a need to, hey, let me slow down, let me check in, let me make sure that my plans make sense given what's happening right now. And I mean, that's a huge, huge outer purpose clarity shift, because we can have a desire to put something out into the world, and we may have had plans, and may have been doing all the things, but right now we may have to shift, and we may have to adjust that, because that's not really the ask that's being asked of us right now. And we can check in and say, hey, is there something else that's being asked of me right now that really speaks to the need of the people in my life right now? And I mean, that's huge, right? You may feel a positive or negative, an increase or decrease in terms of feeling aligned, in terms of your money, your tangible purpose currency, especially if you're experiencing layoff or furlough, or a business that had to shutter down, and all of these things that you had plans, different things that you had planned on doing to sustain yourself that are put on hold, and maybe indefinitely, in the short term, depending upon what industry you're in, that your purposeful expression touches, right? And then there are also the different energy levels, right? And so when you're kind of like in your flow, and you're in your groove, and your body is producing the oxytocin, which speaks to your well-being, which has you in a state of equilibrium, that gives you this energy where you might be expending a lot of energy, and you're able to do so because you are also getting that wonderful oxytocin that's kind of restorative, and is replenishing you, and just gives you that sense of well-being, that sense of belonging, right? So that's shifted. That could be shifted for a lot of people, while we're going through disruption, and just kind of trying to figure out, what is our North Star right now? What is it that I need to be doing right now? What is my purposeful expression right now? How do I become more adaptive and flexible around that, especially if you're a purpose peep that has been doing your inner work, that has been doing some intensive purpose contemplation, and you figured some stuff out, and then this has happened. Now what? Right? And so that is kind of the outer purpose clarity that we're all kind of experiencing right now. How do I remain motivated during this time, if that's really uncertain for me right now, or if I'm being tapped into significantly and not really having time to kind of check in with my inner purpose clarity, especially if I'm an essential worker. So what does that look like, trying to figure out that balance right now? So, of course, right now we're talking about outer purpose clarity during the time of COVID-19. But just for your future reference, catalysts of purpose clarity shifts can be a sense of relatedness, more relatedness, less relatedness. This can also happen, outer purpose clarity shifts can happen with progress, growth, and evolution. So it's not just things that can be initially perceived as something negative, just as a function of growth and evolution. So as the purpose peeps in our lives, as they change and evolve, right? Then of course the asks of us are going to change and evolve as well. And that's a good thing. That kind of leaves us open to having this ongoing exploration around purpose, around what is the ask of us that evolves like over time. And it's just a beautiful thing to, kind of, let that happen, and just to be available and be present too when these things shift, right? Um, Another catalyst is going to be that that sense of connectiveness, whether that's on an increase or whether that's on a decline. Developmental changes within ourselves and within others. Also, of course, that money pop up or down. But money is like what I call a lag indicator. Is something that happens as a result of something. I think if we check in with our health, with our vitality, with our energy, and see what that is, I think that's a leading indicator that'll tell us the direction, of that money flow and where that's going, right? And then, of course, catastrophes and major events. So now we're moving to a different type of purpose assignment, and the purpose assignment during the time of COVID that has to do with inner outer purpose clarity shifts is very challenging. It just feels like really don't have an anchor. So you're asking those big questions about who you are as a purpose peep, right? As well as where's my place and where's my sense of belonging in the world at the same time, right? And so it kind of feels like there's no anchor. It kind of feels like you're in total ambiguity. There's a lack of control. There's a loss of identity. Um, you may feel kind of disillusioned with life. You may feel like a lack of motivation because you're not really connected with the things that make you come alive on the inside, and then what you can do with that in terms of its expression beyond yourself, right? So, what some people that are in this type of assignment and in this type of experience, you may find yourself or others trying to hold on to the past, right? Clenching it, right? Or either trying to create it. And because they don't feel any kind of line of sight in terms of what's going on. There's not a vision here. It's almost like you're flailing, and people that are in this boat, have an immediate, type of impact, right? And so they have all the cheese has been moved, like everything is like happening like right now. It's not like, oh, this might be a concern longer term. This is like the right now boat people, right? And so this to me can represent one of the most challenging experiences, but it's also could be the rewarding one. So back to the analogy of the earthquake. So the folks that are in this camp, it's like they will be rebuilding from the ground up. So when this comes out of it, they'll have a brand new house, right? It's like the condemned sign is on the outside, and it's like the heavy rebuilding from the foundation up that's happening, on the inside. All the major appliances are being replaced, and all of that. They're kind of like starting, from scratch. And the assignment for this group of people that kind of recognize this level of disruption is to let go. It's just to let go. So now we're at the last type of group or assignment, which is the no purpose clarity shift folks. And so what these folks are experiencing is like, hey, I might even have an increase in inner purpose clarity. I'm so crystal clear on who I am and what I am to be doing right now in terms of that outer purpose clarity. Like this is my time. Like I was built for that. They recognize the preparation. They are ready to serve. They see the future vision. They see the possibilities. They are ready to rebuild. They can have faith and be grounded in the unknown because they can see the silver linings. They can see the light in the middle of all this chaos, right? Um, sometimes this can also represent some folks that may be experiencing a little bit of denial, or they are not in one of the other three assignments or areas because they have a longer impact. So they can see kind of what's coming, but it hasn't kind of hit them yet. It kind of reminds me of like in the beginning when we first heard about COVID, and we heard about COVID in other areas of the world, and it hadn't hit our area yet, or it hadn't hit our state yet, or it hadn't hit our county yet, or I don't live in, so it's like all these different things. You can see that there's this event that's on the horizon, but it hasn't, come here yet. And so I haven't had the need to ask these kind of questions. I haven't experienced the disruption yet. But for the most part, I think it's, about the guides that were equipped for this time. And so go to my COVID-19 support page, bit.ly /COVID, capital COV, lowercase ID, 19 support page on my website. And there's a whole deck around being a transitional character in the age of purpose. So a transitional character where, before COVID, you may have found yourself in a cocoon. You may have found yourself like in a preparation. You may have found yourself feeling some of the things that people are feeling right now that are having their inner purpose clarity shifted, right? You felt in a cocoon. You may have felt a little bit of isolation, why am I off to the side doing this, stuff? Why am I feeling disrupted in terms of my inner purpose clarity or my outer purpose clarity or whatever, when the world just looks like it's just going along, as it has been? It's because you were being equipped. And so now what happened when this change gumbo soup came along, it just kind of propelled you from that isolated experience, or, kind of figuring things out, not really quite knowing when they were going to kick into gear, because it wasn't really time to express what was evolving for you on the inside. But now you see very clearly, now that the outer purpose clarity climate has changed, and your relatedness to, how you can serve and be replenished during this time has become crystal clear, because now the timing is here, right? And so, you may find yourself in that area and with that type of assignment. So now that we've unpacked a little bit, I'm hoping that you can see that your purpose clarity journey is for you, and your assignment is for you. That's the for you part that is almost impossible to perceive in such a time of unprecedented change, that purpose is still alive and well, and your assignments are cultivating just what your role and your contribution is to creating the new normal, to being in service like right now. And so it's not about which of the 4 different types of change or disruption you're having right now. It's about, really kind of seeing and appreciating what your assignment is, and surrendering to that assignment and letting it do what it needs to do in your life, right? And so I'm reminded of a quote that I heard over the weekend during some of the unprecedented graduations that took place last weekend. And one of them was from Oprah with the Facebook, Instagram graduation. And she says, "We are all graduating at this time with the class of 2020. And that really stuck with me and resonated. So your assignment, I'm hoping, and it's my prayer and wish, that you graduate with your assignment during this COVID-19 time. And not just survive this COVID-19 time, but I am hoping that you're going to graduate through your assignment during this time. And what I realized, and what I have been saying after having a lot of reflection during this time, is that we are all in the capstone project of humanity. Like all the different things that, all the different ahas, all the different like training and just life experiences that you've had. They kind of prepared you for this capstone project. This is the capstone project, and the capstone project is the one that requires you to dig into everything that you've been learning, right? And to apply that learning, during this time, right? And so while we're going through all this change, regardless of which type of purpose clarity assignment that you have during this time of COVID, here's the time when that's going to kick in. Here's the time when it's like, we get to choose, our responses and see if our responses are like in keeping with all the different ways that life has prepared us, for this time. And so it kind of requires us to be like, in the, with one foot in the unknown, right? And another foot into, the deep introspection to kind of like really see how life is really working for and through us. So recommendations are, now that we have something, a framework that we can try out, see if it makes sense, see if you resonate with it. I would just implore us to like really approach ourselves and other purpose peeps as we would approach an intensive purpose unit. Okay, so if someone was in intensive care, we would approach them with care. We would approach them with compassion. We would approach them with consideration of what they're going through, because regardless of what your purpose clarity assignment is at this time, and what's being revealed and worked through you, and everything that's going on with your path to purpose journey right now, on the outside we may look like ourselves. We may look like the same person that was before COVID-19, with the exception of our hair and our nails and our beards, and whether we're wearing pajamas or pants. Okay, so for the most part, we look like ourselves, right? But on the inside, we could be doing major shifts in work, major shifts in work. So wherever you are within those assignments, if we keep that type of mindset, then we are approaching people with care. If you are a guide during this time that really gets it and really sees what's happening and has a 30,000-foot level, I want you to consider that most of the people that you're going to serve are somewhere closer to the ground. And so think about how to approach them. Think about what they have the capacity to hear, to digest, to be able to take in. So even if you really don't have a disruption, you might want to mindfully just consider how you may make shifts and adjustments just in communication, in messaging, and just really being able to kind of meet people where they are, from the perspective and the vision and the forward thinking, and kind of live in two worlds, right? And so that's what's available for you. So apply the purpose perspectives. Check it out. When you see someone that may be behaving in a way that's a little different, go back in and check in and say, hey, maybe that person is really going through some inner purpose clarity shifts. And maybe that's why they're kind of cocooning. Maybe that's why they're kind of like checking out right now, and not really available, right? Maybe that's what's really up for them. When you see the person that's like posting all the things, that's like getting this righteous anger going, and all that, you could be like, wow, I wonder, is that person having a shift in terms of their heart-centered why about what they'll take a stand for? I wonder if that's really what's up with that person. When you have shifts between, even with you, even with us, and what we're asking of other people in response to, like what's really alive right now, what your needs really are right now, you can see like, hey, If I'm honest about saying what I really need now, if I'm honest about being authentic about what's really shifting for me, I'm actually helping this other purpose peep to adjust their outer purpose clarity, to adjust to be more in service of what's really needed right now. So if I need more alone time, if I need more if what looks like support is different for me now, and then when I speak into that space, I'm not only helping myself with self-care, right? I'm also helping this other purpose peep to be present to what's up right now. So it's just learning to play with the different purpose perspectives, and just, using it to see what's up with yourself and just to put another pair of glasses on. What I wouldn't do with the perspectives is to try to diagnose people, right? So leave that to some of the guides that, for right now, for such a time, those transitional characters, because they've been equipped for it, right? They have gone through the training for it, right? And people don't need to they don't need to be judged and kind of put in a box. And sometimes the worst thing we can do with a well intention is to try to put somebody in a box while they're transitioning and while they're asking these big questions around their identity and who they are, right? And so that can just like disrupt the flow of their process. So this is a life thing, right? So we didn't dole out the assignments for this, right? We didn't pass out the assignments like the teachers and the, whatever. So that part is covered, right? And so what we can do is to hold space. We can bear witness. Share this with somebody if you feel it would benefit them. But what we're not going to do is to diagnose and tell, right? And so even when we think about the outer purpose clarity, the guidance there is what is the ask of you. It's not what is being told of you, because that's the dynamic that we will resist, right? So even if we're right, even if we can see something before another person, it kind of comes into their awareness, give them the space to have the experience, right? Because that's what's gonna stick. So, and that's the part of the path to purpose journey that makes it so empowering, right? So also I suggest that we accept our assignments, right? And so if inner purpose clarity is what's coming up alive for us, accept that that's what it is, and not fight with it, especially. And so one of the things I struggled with, Purpose Peeps, at the beginning of this is all the work that I did to be able to, oh my gosh, just intense work, intense planning. My forecast models are done. My services and everything that I wanted to accomplish this year was just kind of laid out. And then from the beginning of January, it was clear to me that I was on a different timetable, and I kind of fought it, and I kind of bare knuckled it, and I talked about that during some of my podcasts until this happened, and I realized, oh my gosh, this was helping to prepare me to let go. It was helping to prepare me to let go. And so, yeah, so another thing that we can do is to look for the helper. So once you recognize your assignment, it's like, once you're clear on your assignment, then you will recognize helpers for you during this time. If you're not clear on your assignment, you will not recognize the appropriate helpers for you at this time. So if you recognize that you are going through inner purpose clarity, so then your helpers might be people or resources or conversations or books. We got a whole plethora of helpers that avail themselves and show up when we're clear within ourselves about what's happening with us. So, I mean, there's so many different resources to help you with your heart-centered why. There's so many different resources to help you with uncovering and unlocking what your essence is. And so just trust me, they're gonna come, and you can go looking for them. Of course, I have programs, but I just want you to be clear on where you are, and to be clear about what will serve you during this time. Okay. And oh wow, this is juicy. Move at the speed of change. Move at the speed of change. I heard this on a town hall call recently, and I mean to tell you, it stopped me in my tracks. So pay attention to your sparks and nudges. Pay attention to that thing inside of you that says, "Okay, go," or the thing inside of you that says, slow down, or pay attention to the different types of things, that the speed bumps in life that are adjusting your rate of speed, because there may be something that you need to calibrate in order to really focus on what you need to be focusing on, and to get clarity around what your assignment is and what your role is during this time, right? Just, pay attention to that and move at that speed, and don't let anybody move you beyond that too fast, or too slow, because this time is unprecedented. It's so important. It's so important. Don't paralyze yourself in terms of waiting for perfection, or in terms of waiting for this, like, 100% being 100% sure about what your next move is and all that. It's not like that. It's not like that. And so, I mean, you can have enough clarity, enough purpose clarity to make a move without being 100% sure. Just knowing that, hey, let me try. Let me have some intentional practice. Let me try to do something different. I think I have something to offer. I think I have something to say. I think I can help in this way, and just do it, right? And you'll find out pretty quickly about it was whether it was the right time, or speed, or whatever. You'll know very quickly. So don't stop and paralyze yourself because you're waiting for perfection, right? But don't let other people kind of like move you through your assignment, too quickly, right? Life knows how to graduate you from your assignment, right? And and just be present to that. And you might even want to have a prayer about that. You might even want to kind of have a mantra about that, and just kind of get that in your system, that hey, this assignment is for me, and I'll be graduated from this assignment when and how and if I need to be graduated from this assignment, and I will know how. You can really hold that as a mantra, right? And just kind of let that sink in. And then, by all means, practice self-care and awareness, please. Practice self-care and awareness. Don't just consider how other Purpose Peeps can be in the intensive purpose unit, but also know that you're in the intensive purpose unit yourself. And even if you're a guide during this time, make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure that you have resources. Make sure that someone is doing energy work, right, to help you move through all the intense energy that's happening right now. Even though this is an exciting time for you, it's a lot, right? It's a lot, right? So just make sure that you take care of yourself. So a couple of additional resources. Like I said, that's a COVID-19 support page on the website. If you don't remember that, just go on my website and look for COVID-19 support. And so you'll find this and some other resources. And then also, if you want to learn more about the Ikigai programs, I think there's one on the page now, which is more of an individual program, but it's in like an organizational context. There will be a keep it super simple version that will be coming out soon. So those of us who are like, hey, I don't have the capacity for all that right now, I got you. I got you. So that's going to be offered through Udemy. And there's also going to be an organizational version that'll be coming out soon. All right, Purpose Peeps. So what's coming up next? What's next is going to be, do you know what time it is? And that's going to be focused on the purpose perspective for organizations. So I thank you so much for your time and for hanging out. And I hope that this session of what's going on really supports you. And I hope that you take it in. And I hope that it's something that really kind of provides a floater and a life jacket for you during this unprecedented time. And just know that I am holding space and belief for you to connect with your assignment during this time, and for you to walk that thing out and work that thing out and let it be what it's supposed to be in your life and surrender to it, and that you graduate your assignment at this time. All right, Purpose Peeps. Talk to you soon. Any questions, hit me up at info@denawiggins.com.